The day I realized my own family saw me as their personal AM, I packed my bags, looked back one last time, and felt absolutely nothing. I was born the oldest. And in our family, being the oldest meant one thing: you sacrifice. Always. No questions asked. No complaints allowed. You just give and give until there is nothing left of you. And then you give some more. I was 17 when it started. Dad lost his job. Mom was sick. My younger brother was 12, my sister was 9. The whole house was falling apart and everyone was looking at me like I had the answers. I didn't. I was 17 years old and scared out of my mind. But I swallowed that fear, walked into a grocery store, and begged for a part-time job. They gave me evening shifts. 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. I would go to school in the morning, come home, change, go to work, come back at midnight, do homework, sleep for 4 hours and start again. Every single day. For 2 years straight. I never told anyone how tired I was. Because in my family, tired was not allowed. Tired meant weak. And weak meant you were letting everyone down. By the time I was 19, I was working 2 jobs. I had given up the idea of going to a good college far away. My grades were good enough for a scholarship at a university in another city. A full ride. My teacher personally called my parents and told them this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. My mom cried and said she didn't know how the family would survive without me. I turned down the scholarship. I stayed. I told myself it was okay. Family first. Always family first. I would find another way. And I did. I enrolled in a local college, studied at night, worked during the day, and somehow graduated. Took me 5 years instead of 4, but I did it. During those 5 years I paid rent 4 times when Dad couldn't. I bought my brother his school supplies every single year. I paid for my sister's extra classes because she wanted to learn art and Mom said there was no money. I never once said no. Not once. And nobody ever said thank you. Not once. I thought that was normal. I thought that's just how family works. You don't say thank you to family. You just love them. So I kept going. 24, I got a decent job. Real salary. Finally some breathing room. For the first time in my life I could save money. I could think about my future. I started putting away a little every month. I had a dream. A small apartment of my own. Just mine. A place where I could come home and exhale. Then my brother needed money for his business idea. $50,000. He sat across from me at the dinner table, excited eyes, big dreams, and said, "You're the only one I can count on." Mom was nodding beside him. Dad was looking at the table. I gave him $30,000. Everything I had saved in 2 years. His business failed in 8 months. He never paid me back. Never even mentioned it again. I told myself it was okay. He's my brother. Money comes and goes. Least he tried. Then my sister got married. Beautiful wedding. Big venue. Expensive catering. Fancy decorations. Mom wanted everything perfect. And who do you think paid for most of it? I smiled through the entire wedding. Danced. Laughed. Took pictures. And went home and cried alone because I had just emptied my savings account for the second time. Still, I told myself it was okay. Then I met someone. Good man. Honest, hardworking, kind. We fell in love slowly and carefully, and it was the first real happiness I had felt in years. We got married quietly. Small ceremony, close friends only. I couldn't afford anything big, and honestly, I didn't have the energy to perform happiness for a crowd. My family complained the wedding was too simple. Mom said she was embarrassed in front of relatives. My brother said I should have done it properly. My sister didn't even show up on time. I said nothing. My husband saw everything. He held my hand that night and said, "You deserve so much better than this." I told him he was wrong. That this was just how families were. He didn't argue. He just waited. For 3 more years he watched me run back every time my family called. Money problems, I was there. Health issues, I dropped everything. Family drama, I mediated. Every holiday, every crisis, every emergency, I showed up. My husband never stopped me. But I could see it in his eyes, the quiet worry. The sadness on my behalf. Then one evening everything broke. We were at my parents' house for dinner. Normal evening. Or so I thought. Halfway through the meal, my brother casually mentioned he needed money again. New idea, new business, very promising this time. He looked straight at me when he said it. Said no. The table went silent. Mom put her fork down. Dad cleared his throat. My sister looked away. My brother's face changed completely. He said, "Wow. So now you're too good for us." I said, "I've given you everything I had. I have nothing left to give." He laughed. Actually laughed. And said, "You act like you did us some big favor. Your family. This is what you're supposed to do." Something snapped inside me. 15 years. 15 years of double shifts and skipped dreams and emptied savings accounts and silent sacrifices, and not one single person at that table had ever once looked at me and said, "We see you. We appreciate you. Thank you for staying." I looked at my mom. She was looking at her plate. I said, "I did everything alone while you all watched. Every single thing. And not one of you ever noticed." My brother said, "Here we go, the drama starts." My mom said, "Stop making a scene." My husband stood up before I could say another word. He gently took my hand and said, "We're leaving." And we left. Mom called before we even reached the parking lot. I watched the phone ring. Couldn't pick it up. My hands were shaking. My husband drove in silence, and I just stared out the window watching streetlights blur past. When we got home, I sat on the kitchen floor and cried for an hour. Not the quiet, polite crying I had done alone for years. Real crying. The kind that comes from somewhere deep. 15 years of exhaustion and loneliness and invisible sacrifice all coming out at once. My husband sat on the floor beside me. Didn't say anything. Just put his arm around me and stayed. When I finally stopped crying, I picked up my phone and typed one message to my mom. "I love you. But I am done being everyone's everything while being no one's priority. When you are ready to have an honest conversation and acknowledge what I have carried for this family, call me. Until then, please give me space." She read it. Did not reply. My brother sent a long angry message about how I was destroying the family. My sister said I was being dramatic. Dad called once, said nothing when I picked up, and hung up. That was 4 months ago. It has been the hardest 4 months of my life. And also the most peaceful. I sleep through the night now. I eat meals without checking my phone every 5 minutes, waiting for the next emergency. I have money in my savings account for the first time in a decade. Laugh more. Breathe more. And slowly, slowly, I am learning who I am outside of being the person who fixes everything for everyone else. Mom called last week. First time in 4 months. Picked up. She didn't apologize. But she asked how I was. And her voice was softer than I had heard it in years. I said, "I'm okay, Mom. I'm actually okay." And I meant it. I don't know what happens next. Maybe we find our way back to each other in a healthier way. Maybe we don't. But I know one thing now that I wish someone had told me 17 years ago. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. Saying no is not betrayal. And walking away from people who only value what you can give them is not weakness. It is the bravest, hardest, most necessary thing you will ever do. If this story moved you, if you saw yourself somewhere in these words, like follow, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded that they matter too. Not for what they give, but for who they are.